Welcome to this week's episode of MLM Renegade. And guys, this week we're going to talk about relationships and why you should never leave one behind.
So here's the million-dollar question. How are network marketers like us, who've tried everything their upline ever suggested to be successful, and yet still struggled, who grew up with technology and aren't stuck in the 20th century, how are we supposed to grow our downlines and our bank accounts, and yet still have time for real life? My name is J.R. McKee. Join me as we explore how to use 21st century learning and technology to grow our downlines and build lasting wealth. Simply put, this is MLM done different. Welcome to MLM Renegade.
Okay, guys, so this week I wanted to talk about relationships, and I'm not talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about building relationships that can be valuable, especially in the long run. So I've been thinking about this actually for a couple of weeks, and it's been exciting to, as the spring is breaking, and I'm coaching baseball, and we're back to baseball. It's been fun to kind of think back and look at my life and my career, especially as I work in sales, and how often it's happened that somebody who I met a long time ago, who I just built a relationship with, and I maintained a relationship. In fact, I have this kind of funny habit. Let me go back. So when I was in high school in the 1990s, age myself a little bit, I was, my parents for my 16th birthday got me a gag gift. It was a t-shirt that said, "Help, I'm on the phone and I can't shut up." And that was true. I lived in a rural part of Western Washington state, and it was 15 minutes to get to a grocery store. And my friends all lived quite far away. So while I did definitely ride my bicycle a lot places, none of my friends lived really close by. And so I got used to using the telephone to manage a relationship, to keep up with my friends, to find out what was happening, in the junior high gossip scene. And it's funny because that has kind of followed me. In fact, it followed me to when I was at school at BYU. I worked my way. I worked full time and went to school full time as I worked my way through school. And so I was working for the cell phone companies. And this is early 2000s now, when the cell phone, cell phones were all the rage, right? I actually worked at AT&T towards the end of my period in cell phones. I worked at AT&T the day that the Apple iPhone was launched, and crazy stories around that. But one of the things that I learned from that experience of about 4.5, 5 years working for cell phone companies is the customers that I would meet and the relationships that I would build with them. We had one customer in particular who was she actually worked for IT at Nu Skin. And Nu Skin is a large network marketing company based out of Provo. And she would come in monthly and have to basically go through a deep dive on their bill as she had to reconcile all this to who had what, et cetera, et cetera. And there was myself and one other guy her name was Leslie, and Chris was the other guy, and Chris and I took care of Leslie. She was like a mom to us. Like she's awesome. Sadly, she passed away a few years ago. But the point of this is that when she came in, whichever one of us was free took care of her. Didn't matter. We shared responsibility for this account. So and we became very good friends with Leslie. And so much so, like I said, she was kind of a mom to us. She was about our mother's age. She was awesome. And she loved to give us a hard time, and we loved to give it right back to her. But that relationship spawned thousands of dollars of commissions for both Chris and I, as we helped to take care of her problems, and then new opportunities came for us to sell to Nu Skin. Well, another relationship that came from that actually was the dean of a business school at BYU, or maybe he was a department chair, it doesn't matter. Don Livingstone was his name. Don, if you're out there, I'm excited you're listening. But Don came in and he had needed some help with his family's cell phone plan. And so I got to help him, and it was just kind of a fluke thing. Well, he came in a few times over the course of a few months, and at this point in time, I was an engineering student at BYU, and having a terrible time with it. Like I wasn't happy. I wasn't having fun. I wasn't, I wasn't able to really engage, and it wasn't the right thing for me. In fact, later on, my dad told me after I ended up changing my major. My dad told me, he's like, well, I wondered when you were going to figure it out that wasn't for you. And I just looked at him like, come on, seriously, Dad? You couldn't have told me? But maybe I wouldn't have believed him. Anyway, Don saw how frustrated I was when I was talking about school and just kind of flipping about it. And he's like, well, why are you doing it? And I couldn't come up with a good reason why I was still an engineering student at that point in time. I had originally started in engineering because I thought I was going to fly fighter jets. And after my daughter was born, life kind of changed, and that wasn't going to happen anymore. The Air Force wasn't in my future anymore. And so I couldn't come up with a good reason. And so he encouraged me to quit that semester. It was October. It was past the drop deadline. And he encouraged me and said, well, what do you like? And he really had me make a self-assessment about what I wanted out of my life and out of my education. And it ended up that I ended up switching my major to economics, which I greatly enjoyed. And it changed school for me because I went to school because I wanted to, because I wanted to build relationships around me, and because I wanted to learn something cool. I didn't think that I was going to go into whatever I studied. I started working in sales at 17, and I was pretty good at it, and I had fun with it, and I made good money from it. And so that was, and he saw that in me. So I literally walked away from an entire semester's worth of engineering courses for an F. And definitely did things to hurt my grade point average, but in the end, I didn't care. But that relationship was valuable to me. In fact, I've run into Don in years after. I mean, this was 15 plus years ago. And it's been great just to see him and talk to him. And his son and I are friends, and we talk every once in a while. And so it's really great that relationship. But back to my point about phones, I got a little sidetracked. The phone has long been my way of communication. It's no surprise then that I use the phone every day in my day job to communicate with customers. But even in my in my personal life, I find myself, especially when I'm driving, that I will dial up people who I haven't talked to in months and or years, and just reach out and say, "Hey, man, how you doing?" Catch up. And it is amazing to me the people who have come out of the woodwork that really appreciate that. People like to know that they're thought of, that they're thought of well, and that people care about them that maybe they aren't thinking about. And that idea, I was actually in my truck making some of these phone calls just to catch up with people, see how they're doing, when the idea for this podcast came out. And relationships can get kind of a bad rap, right? We have our romantic entanglements, we have relationships in business, and sometimes business and pleasure cross over. In fact, my favorite opportunities for relationship building are when my commercial endeavors, my job, become my friends, like Leslie, like Dawn, like a host of other clients that have become friends, that we've been able to go out and play golf and have lunch and just be able to sit and shoot the bull and take care of each other from an emotional standpoint as well as from a psychological one, because people need a pack. People need other people who share their values and share their belief systems. And while we don't have to all share every belief system, being able to be empathetic and being able to be warm towards other people is a skill that sometimes gets forgotten. And so as you're out and about, as you're driving, as you're thinking about where you want your life to go, think about the people who helped you get to where you are, and think about how new people or those same people could help you get to where you want to go. The adage about you're a reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or the 5 people you surround yourself with. And if you look around and you see a lot of negativity, you see people's lives who you don't want to have, maybe you ought to change the pack that you're running with. Maybe you ought to take a different angle and a different approach at how you approach life. So I've gone through this a few times in my life. Actually, all the way back to junior high school, I ended up switching schools because I didn't like the people that were around me. And some of it maybe was fear, right? I was not the popular kid in school, but I wanted something better for myself, and so I strived for it. And so I switched schools, and it ended up working out for me. And I wanted to surround myself with better people after high school, and I was the only person in my school who got into my university. Very prestigious university, very niche also. But that niche was what was exciting to me, and those were my people. And I still tell people that my freshman year, where I got to move away from home for the first time as an 18-year-old kid and live on my own and be around other people my age and have fun, was one of my favorite years of my life. One that I would go back and relive a few times given the opportunity. But even those relationships from being 18 years old are relationships that I maintain. There's a group of 30 guys that we lived on that dorm floor together that I still keep up with. People who are doctors, financial planners, other sales reps, and everything in between. My roommate, John Crockett, from that year, happy birthday, buddy. His birthday was April 1st, and he and I ran across each other at an event when I worked for a software company a couple years ago. He was there as a customer. We ran into each other and took pictures, gave him a high five and a hug, and talked, and it was fantastic. And yet that was an experience from 1997. That was nearly 25 years ago that we were roommates, and yet that bond remained. And those bonds can remain, and you can make lasting friendships that are based and will open up opportunities and bridges for you in the future. As I talk to people about my sales process or my sales methodology, it's funny to think about, because I literally tell people, I'm like, look, I make friends and then my friends buy from me. And then some of my friends from a long time ago come along and buy from me, even though I made friends with them 10 years ago. And I've seen it happen so many times that it's a pattern in my life. And maintaining those relationships is important to me. And because they're important to me, those people are important to me. And those people want to be loved. Those people want to be engaged with. Those people want to have meaningful relationships, just like I do. And what happens? We end up finding ways to help each other. It's happened more than once where somebody who I'm friends with on Facebook, who I literally haven't seen in 5, 8, 10 years, somebody posts something about needing some help, or they need to move, or whatever, and I see where I'm able to help them or provide assistance wherever I can, and that is, I call it being a good friend. But really, it is maintaining relationships and being the person that you would like others to be with you. So, the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And if you live by that rule, there's a lot of good things that you're going to have in this life, and a lot of great opportunities to impact your life and the life of others. Build solid relationships. Don't burn bridges, ever, for any reason. If you've been slighted, if you've been hurt, fine, but don't burn the bridge. It doesn't do anything but hurt you. And if you burn those bridges, it will come back and harm you in the end. That's all I've got for today, guys. Really excited about some things coming up here in the future. But until then, make it the best day.
Hey, thanks for listening, and please remember to subscribe. And if you loved us, leave us an awesome review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Now, if you'd like some free training for your team on how your recruiting efforts can be bettered and brought into the 21st century, go to podcast.mlmrenegade.com and get your copy of the Renegade Recruiting Kickstarter.